Uncovering the silent career killer, chronic stress in your brain. Think about this. What if the biggest thing holding you back in your career, the thing messing with your peace of mind, isn't your tough boss, that monster project, or even worries about the economy? What if it's something quieter, something inside you that's messing with your success and even changing how your brain works? Sounds like science fiction, right? But for millions, it's all too real. Get this. Recent figures from 2024 and early 2025 show a whopping 82% of employees are at risk of burnout. And we're not just talking about being a little worn out after a tough week. No, this is a huge chunk of our workforce on the brink of a crisis, all thanks to chronic stress. The scary part? Many don't even realize this constant pressure is more than just a bad feeling. It's actually causing physical changes in their brains. We all talk about stress at work, right? Sometimes it feels like it's just part of the job, almost a badge of honor. But there's a huge difference between the kind of stress that gives you a little kick to meet a deadline, that's acute stress, and the kind that grinds you down day after day. That's chronic stress, and it's the silent career killer we're talking about. Why silent? Because its worst effects often sneak up on you until suddenly your productivity tanks, you've lost your spark, and your health starts to suffer. And it's not a small problem. Millions are dealing with this. OSHA stats tell us that a staggering 83% of US workers are stressed out because of their jobs. This isn't just a you problem, it's a full-blown epidemic hiding in our offices and even our home setups. The World Health Organization says this workplace stress drains about $1 trillion from the global economy every year in lost productivity. And in the US, we're talking over $300 billion lost annually from people being out sick, quitting, or just not being able to do their best work. Plus, it's linked to a ton of serious health issues. So why do we miss it so often? Because it's sneaky. It creeps in with an extra hour worked here, a skipped lunch there, the never-ending pings from your phone, and that constant pressure to be always on. One by one, these things might not seem like a big deal, but add them all up over time, and they create a tidal wave of stress that starts to literally change your brain chemistry. You might just feel tired all the time, maybe a bit more snappy, or find it hard to concentrate and you just brush it off as a rough patch. But under the surface, there's something much bigger going on. So, to really get why chronic workplace stress can wreck your career, we need to peek inside your head, at your brain. We're not just talking about feeling stressed here, we're talking about real physical changes to how your brain is built and how it works. First up, cortisol. You've probably heard of it, it's the stress hormone. When things get tense, your body releases it. In small doses, it's actually useful. It's that whole fight or flight thing. But what happens when your job keeps you on high alert, day in, day out? You get a cortisol overload. It's like your brain is constantly soaking in stress hormones. This prolonged exposure keeps your brain stuck in survival mode, which it really wasn't built for long term. And over time, this chemical imbalance is directly linked to the development of anxiety, depression, and a real dip in your ability to think clearly. Your brain's very chemistry changes under all that pressure. One of the big areas scientists have looked at is the hippocampus. This part of your brain is super important for making memories and keeping your emotions in check. Now, here's the kicker. Loads of research, including MRI studies, show that chronic stress can actually shrink the hippocampus. Let that sink in. Ongoing stress can physically shrink a part of your brain that you need for learning, remembering stuff, and managing your feelings. This isn't just some fuzzy idea. It's a physical change that explains why people in really stressful jobs often say they're forgetful or struggle to control their emotions. Then there's your prefrontal cortex, or PFC. Think of it as the CEO of your brain. It handles the big stuff, making smart decisions, solving tricky problems, keeping your impulses in check, and planning ahead. Well, chronic stress throws a wrench in the PFC's works. It just doesn't run as smoothly, its communication lines get all tangled up. And that's why, when you're chronically stressed, you might find yourself making bad calls, struggling with tasks that used to be easy, or just snapping instead of thinking things through. The very skills you need to get ahead at work are being dulled by this constant stress attack. Some studies even suggest that working crazy long hours, a classic sign and cause of chronic stress, can lead to physical changes in these brain areas. By the way, if you're finding this helpful and want practical tools to lower stress and reclaim mental clarity, make sure to grab your free Natural Life Starter Kit. It's packed with easy-to-use healing tools, calming affirmations, and natural stress relief techniques you can start using today. The link's just below. Download it now and give your mind and body the reset they deserve. These aren't just passing moods. They're the fallout from your brain trying its best to cope with a situation it just can't sustain, and in the process, it rewires itself in ways that can seriously mess with your career and your overall happiness. So all those brain changes we just talked about, they aren't just interesting science facts. They show up in very real, often painful ways, hitting your mental and emotional health hard. Let's kick off with burnout. Burnout isn't just being tired. It's a deep kind of exhaustion that comes straight from ongoing, unmanaged stress at work. It usually shows up in three main ways. You feel completely drained emotionally, you start feeling cynical and disconnected from your job, and you feel like you're just not good at what you do anymore. The latest numbers are pretty worrying. A 2025 Moodle study found that 66% of American employees are feeling some level of burnout, and a DHR Global survey in 2024, it showed 82% of knowledge workers felt burned out to some extent. This is serious stuff, and usually, a long weekend isn't enough to fix it. Anxiety and panic attacks often go hand in hand with chronic workplace stress too. That constant pressure to deliver, those never-ending deadlines, tricky colleagues, or just worrying about your job security, it can all feed into a constant state of worry, a mind that won't shut off, and for some, truly terrifying panic attacks. We know that around 83% of US workers say they're stressed by their jobs, and it doesn't just stay at work. 54% say that stress spills over and messes with their home life. Depression is another big one. Feeling helpless, like you have no control or just completely overwhelmed by work, these are classic triggers for depression, especially in stressful job environments. The connection is so clear that workplace stress is seen as a major risk factor for clinical depression. The World Health Organization points out that depression and anxiety suck about $1 trillion from the global economy every year, mostly because people can't work as well. And even if it's not a full-blown diagnosis, there's this widespread feeling of emotional exhaustion. This is where you just feel numb, drained, or disconnected, not just from your job, but from everything. That spark, that joy in things, your ability to connect with people, it all gets dulled by the constant weight of stress. Listen, these aren't signs that you're weak. They're what happens when your brain and body are under attack from non-stop stress, leading to real changes in how you feel and function. It's not just your emotions that take a hit. Chronic workplace stress also attacks your thinking skills, that mental sharpness you need to do your job well, come up with new ideas, and move up in your career. Those brain changes we talked about, they directly lead to fuzzy thinking. Memory and concentration are often the first to go. Remember that shrinking hippocampus? That means it's harder to make new memories or pull up old ones. You might forget key details from a meeting, struggle to remember important info for a project, or find it tough to pick up new skills or software. And trying to concentrate? It can feel like a daily uphill battle. Focusing on one thing seems impossible, your attention span shrinks, and even routine tasks or meetings can feel exhausting and pointless. Lots of people under chronic stress talk about having a constant brain fog. Then there's your cognitive flexibility. Basically how well your brain can adapt its thinking switch gears between different ideas and tackle problems from new angles. Chronic stress makes your thinking more rigid. You find it harder to adapt when things change, you're less creative with solutions, and you get stuck in the same old ways of thinking. This is a major blow to innovation and being adaptable, which are super important skills in today's working world. That prefrontal cortex we mentioned, when it's stressed out, really struggles with this kind of quick, flexible thinking. And maybe the biggest hit to your career? Chronic stress messes with your decision-making. Like we said, your prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center, just doesn't work as well under pressure. This means you might make worse judgments, act more impulsively, and struggle to weigh all the factors when you're making important decisions. Instead of careful thought, your choices might be driven by the immediate stress or how you're feeling right then. Over time, a string of bad decisions can seriously damage your career path. In fact, studies show that a huge 91% of US workers say that out-of-control workplace stress hurts the quality of their work. Your brain is your most important tool at work. But chronic stress is like a silent thief, slowly stealing its power, clarity, and speed. It's so important to see these thinking problems for what they are, not a personal flaw, but a result of being in an environment that's just too much to handle. One of the trickiest things about chronic workplace stress is how it feeds on itself, creating a nasty downward spiral. It's not just that stress causes problems, the problems themselves then create even more stress. It can trap individuals and even whole companies in this really negative loop. For you, as an individual, it might look something like this. First, the work stress starts to affect your mental and physical health. You might feel anxious, have that brain fog we talked about, feel totally drained, or even get physically sick. Naturally, when you're feeling like that, your productivity and performance at work take a nosedive. It's just harder to focus, make smart choices, or really be present when you're fighting off the effects of chronic stress. Then, because your productivity is down, the work pressure actually increases. Maybe you miss deadlines, the quality of your work isn't what it used to be, and that pile of tasks just keeps growing. This can lead to more pressure from your boss, or you just start beating yourself up about it. And guess what? All that extra pressure just piles on more stress. So the cycle starts all over again, and each time it can get a little bit worse. This isn't just a personal problem, it hits entire organizations hard too. Companies with a really stressed out culture often see more people calling in sick because of stress-related illnesses. They also get a lot of presenteeism. That's when people show up to work but are so stressed or burned out they're not really getting anything done. Disengagement is a huge problem. A 2024 Gallup poll showed that 62% of employees are not engaged at work, which means massive losses in productivity worldwide. You also see more people quitting. Talented folks will leave stressful or toxic workplaces to find something healthier, and that costs companies a ton in hiring and training new people. The quality of work can drop, new ideas dry up because no one has the mental space for creative thinking, and you might even see more arguments between colleagues because stressed people have shorter fuses. Team morale can go right down the drain, making the workplace even worse. The financial hit is massive. As we said earlier, the global economy loses something like $1 trillion a year because of lost productivity from depression and anxiety, and a lot of that is tied to work. US businesses, they're losing around $300 billion a year thanks to workplace stress. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represent real people not reaching their potential, good ideas never seeing the light of day, and a huge waste of resources. But here's a bit of good news. For every dollar a company invests in tackling common mental health issues, they can actually see a $4 return in productivity. So, dealing with this isn't just the right thing to do, it makes good business sense. The first step to breaking this cycle? Realizing it's happening both for yourself and within your company. Learning about how chronic workplace stress quietly messes with your brain and your well-being can feel a bit overwhelming, I get it. But honestly, this information isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to give you some power back. When you understand the real biological stuff that might be happening, it validates what you're going through. It's not just all in your head like some people might dismissively say, it's literally happening in your brain, affecting its chemistry and even its physical structure. Realizing that chronic stress is a genuine workplace hazard just like a physical risk in other jobs is the absolute first step to dealing with it. It really shifts the focus from, am I too weak? To, is this workplace healthy? This kind of awareness helps you see your situation differently and start thinking about what needs to change. Whether that's how you personally cope or maybe speaking up for a better work environment. So far, we've mostly talked about the problem itself, but finding a way forward starts right here, with this understanding. It's about truly getting the massive impact of chronic stress, not just on your mood or how your day went, but on the very organ that makes you who you are and dictates how well you can do your job. This awareness is the bedrock for building strategies to reduce stress, become more resilient, and eventually, create a healthier way of working. If any of this sounds familiar, if you've felt the grip of chronic workplace stress in your own life, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What parts of this silent killer have you experienced? Sharing your story could really help someone else realize they're not alone in this. And if you found this helpful, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe for more chats about tackling work challenges and staying well, and maybe share this with colleagues or friends who you think might be going through something similar. Let's get this conversation out in the open. Remember, chronic stress isn't just uncomfortable. It silently chips away at your energy, focus, and long-term success. But the good news? You can take control. Start with small science-backed steps. Download your free Natural Life Starter Kit today. It's your first step toward a calmer, more focused, and empowered you. And don't stop here. Watch this next. How to instantly activate your brain and boost focus, using science plus natural tools, to discover natural brain-boosting strategies that work. Take your wellness and productivity to the next level. Your future self will thank you. So, chronic workplace stress? It's way more than just having a few bad days. It's a powerful thing that can actually change your brain, mess with your emotional health, make it harder to think clearly, and if you don't tackle it, it can seriously sidetrack your career and just make life less enjoyable. Millions of us are fighting this silent battle, often without even knowing the huge changes happening inside us. But by shining a light on these hidden effects, all that cortisol, the shrinking hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex getting scrambled, we can move from just quietly struggling to actually knowing what's going on. Knowing this isn't a magic fix, but it's the essential first step. It's about starting to take chronic stress seriously, pushing for healthier places to work, and making sure we look after our most important tool, our minds. Thanks so much for tuning in.